Hello, everybody. We know the last thing you need is another fitness podcast to catch you up on the newest trends, fad diets, and fictitious fat-blasting workouts that will be dead in the coming decade. Enter myself and Marianna today, where we made fitness stuff for normal people podcast to make exercise and nutrition science practical. Our goal is to expose misinformation in the industry by providing only evidence-based education, where today we're covering something that we get asked about all the freaking time, 10 times a day, which is greens powder. So, Marianna, let me start by just asking, how you doing today? How are you? Hello.
I'm doing well. I'm doing really well. Yeah, it's almost evening for me. It's 4:30. So we're on a different energy here, Tony and I, but I think it matches really well. I ran 6 miles this morning. I just ate my protein oatmeal.
You're starting to come down a little bit. I'm starting to pick up. I just had a little lunch. It's Cali time. Okay. Today, though.
No, I had a Celsius, though, so we're good.
Oh, slamming Celsius. Okay. Even though you like the worst flavor imaginable. We should do a poll in the episode of that. Is orange the worst flavor? It is. So today, greens powders. We're going to talk about this. Mainly because the trending on, these are getting ridiculous. The greens powders are getting expensive. They're not a cheap supplement to invest in. People are marketing them and they're being used for curing, quote unquote curing, bloating and digestible issues. They are being sold to replace people eating their fruits and vegetables if you're a picky eater, if you don't like that. So today we're going to start with the question and just say, okay, is this something that we should be including in our diet? Should this be a staple in our supplement routine? Marianna, what do you think?
Short answer, no. Anything
Long answer, still no. No, I'm kidding.
Long answer, let's get into it. But first of all, anything that is a supplement should never be a staple unless if you have an underlying reason as to why you are maybe deficient in a vitamin or mineral and need to supplement with something, because either you absolutely cannot get it from your diet, or your body cannot produce it on its own and needs a little assistance. So just making that clear. But
very well said.
Other than that, no. And especially with greens powders, I think that there is so much hype around them because
big time.
It sounds amazing. Like, they've got the digestive enzymes in them. They have 100,000 plus times how many vitamins and minerals you need in a day. Like, it's insane. So they use that for marketing, and then how it's just so easy to use to get all your nutrient needs. And you also have probiotics in them, and they also help with your immune health. Like, the amount of claims you can make in marketing with them are just through the roof. So of course people want to buy them. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, why wouldn't I want 20,000 times the RDA of vitamin C? Why wouldn't I want that? Wouldn't it make me a superhuman? It's okay, but it is easily marketable, right? Because people, especially, I would have to look at the actual numbers and statistics. I would say the vast majority of Americans especially don't get what they should for fruits and vegetables. So it's easy to paint the picture of, oh, you don't do that. Here's, like the supplement industry does, here's a product that solves that problem. You don't have to do this anymore. Don't worry about it. We got you based on this. And it's like some of the formulas they put in. We were just reading off some of the top popular blends. And they've got hundreds of ingredients in a scoop. Hundreds of ingredients. It's not just your main vitamins, but it's hundreds of different mushroom complexes and different, like we just said, hundreds of different things in there. So it seems like a very okay, here's a cover up. Here's to make sure I don't miss anything. I think that's what most people take it as. And I think I want to dissect each of the reasons people take them individually. Bloating, the whatever. I think the first one I want to talk about, though, that we were just kind of going back and forth before we started the episode, is I think a lot of people take them because they might not get enough fruits or veggies in their diets, or at least consistently get fruits and veggies in their diets, in their diets. And they take one to make sure they're covered. That's like the cover quote of okay, I just want to make sure I'm covered. So let's talk about this. For people who don't think they eat enough fruits and veggies, is a greens powder something that would, one, actually make up for the lost diet nutritional pieces? And two, are they better off taking one than...
Yeah. So first of all, there is absolutely zero comparison with fresh produce, fruits and vegetables, and taking a greens powder or a multivitamin. You can include them in the same thing there. One, you do not get the fiber from a greens powder or a multivitamin. And I could talk about fiber forever because it is so well studied in terms of how it can lower a lot of your risks for certain chronic diseases. It can also help with the weight loss, keep you fuller longer. It's amazing for heart health. It's found in so many delicious foods that also have a lot of micronutrients. Yeah. So the hard thing is you're missing out on that. And even if you do have a powder that has added processed fiber, so fiber that is extracted, made into some sort of powder, like an inulin powder that is fiber added back in, it is still not the same in terms of its health effects as you would get from having it in whole foods, and also how much are you getting. So the issue with, and then this goes into, just leads perfectly into this element of why I don't think there's any comparison, and we do know in terms of the literature that there is no comparison, is because with green powders, you have these proprietary blends. So what does that mean? Like Tony was just listing off a few different blends of like mushrooms, and you can have probiotics and immunity blend. So you're actually not required to list the amounts of what is in these blends. And I was just telling Tony, when Congress enacted the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act in 1994, it was expressly created a unique labeling situation for proprietary blends and dietary supplements to protect their confidential formulas. So they say that this is used to protect trade secrets, but really they don't have to list the quantity of the nutrient and what they're putting of each ingredient in there. So there's no requirement there. Let's
pause on that real quick. I don't think people realize the gravity of what you just said, right? Like, okay, it was in the act, like you just mentioned, it was made to protect the companies, because if you're coming out with a new product, you don't want other companies to steal your product. You don't want them to know what's. So it was made for that reasons, which I get the competitive, right?
Yeah, if you have to protect your intellectual property of your product. I get
exactly.
That.
You don't want people to replicate it. I get that. But what I think what we were talking about, supplement companies have used to exploit that rule, is they can list. I think the ones that we were looking at. I mean, can we name names on greens powders on this one?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like
okay.
I'll name drop.
Greens. Okay, if we're talking about Athletic Greens, $100 for a 30-day supply on their greens powders. They've got 4 different proprietary blends where it says there's 5,000 total milligrams of this list of 50 different compounds, but it doesn't tell you how much of each of those 50 are in there. So I'm not saying Athletic Greens does this, but a lot of companies.
And it does with a lot of them. A lot of their compounds, it does include them, but then there's a few that you're just like, oh, this is missing. Like, but they do a list. They do a pretty good job of including the majority of them. But
yes, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to bash on them, but they do have proprietary blends. But a lot of supplement companies use proprietary blends to exploit cheaper ingredients and put like a lot of cheap ingredients and expensive ingredients in the same blend. Put very little of the expensive, like actual meaningful ingredient, and a lot of the cheap, meaningless ingredients, just so they can list that they have XYZ in their product, even though it's not the clinical dose. It's not enough to make a difference. Yeah. So there's a problem of like what proprietary blends, there's an issue there. Yeah. Not saying it's a red flag, but it's not the end all be all.
Yeah. And also, like, the whole argument is that the FDA has access to these ingredients. One of the biggest, and that's great, as they should, but one of the biggest issues with just supplements in general, they are not regulated by the FDA. So things aren't flagged until there's just is so, it really is counterintuitive, but it's good that they're addressed, but there's no prevention there. There's no line you have to go to make sure you're being honest and there's no deception. There's none. But if there is dishonesty and deception and enough of it, okay, we're going to flag this. We're going to do something about it. So I didn't even answer your question, but going back to the idea of, okay, if I don't eat enough fruits and veggies. I don't get enough in my diet. Okay, first, I will always recommend, if you really care about making dietary changes, if you have some access to make even the fewest or even just one, let's add in a serving of fruits and vegetables at each meal. We could buy frozen veggies. They're so much cheaper. If you have access to a supplement or greens powder, I think a subscription for Athletic Greens is like $70 a month. Let's spend that money elsewhere. Yeah, let's spend that money elsewhere. Let's buy some veggies. If you don't like them, okay, let's blend them into some smoothies. If you are dedicated to making that health behavior change.
Yeah.
If you are not, and if you're not dedicated to it, you just want a really easy way to do it, you have the money, you have the access, is it going to hurt you? Well, no, it's not. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not, that's your deal. And I think that is, but it ignores the principle of the majority of people who do have access to these greens powders do not need them.
100%. So let me ask you that. Who does need these?
The people who do not have either financial access, or there's just a barrier to actually even getting your hands on it. Those are the people, if you have like a lower socioeconomic status, really do not have like access to fruits and veggies for so many different reasons, whether it's financial, you don't have the cooking equipment, you are a kid, and your primary food source has zero produce in it. I mean, children, there would have to be a lot. They're minors again, so it wouldn't fly to market greens powders to children. That's why there's vitamins for kids.
$100 green powders. That wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, and I mean, their bodies are so different than how an adult would react. So a lot more research and time and money would have to go into making a product specifically for kids. So if we're talking about just adults in this situation, yeah, all right. If you absolutely know that you have no other way and you really do need these and it's easy for you, sure. But
I was going to say, because what about the adults that are like, well, I'm a picky eater, I'd rather just take this powder than eat my greens or eat my fruits and veggies? Are you saying that would be a good scenario to take them?
Yeah, it's fine. If you are not willing to make any dietary changes and you don't have the time and don't want to, it's still not the same as
it won't replace
as your
fruits
diet.
And vegetables. It won't replace fruits and vegetables. So you can take them if you are picky, but just still know it's not like it's, oh, I can't eat fruits and vegetables, so I'll just take this greens powder. You're still not accomplishing what you want to accomplish by that.
Yeah. And the same, and then it comes to, okay, so you're taking this to cover all your bases. Then what is your diet like? So if you have no fruits and vegetables in your diet, nothing with micronutrients in it, just because you don't like it, honestly, if you don't like them, suck it up and find a way to eat them. Sorry, but if that's your only reason.
Yeah. I've always been like, because people are like, well, I'm my husband or wife, they're the pickiest eater. They just cannot eat fruits and vegetables. I'm like taste is in your mind. Like, taste is not something that just is. It's like,
you can get so sneaky nowadays too. Like,
in your prep,
put them in anything.
If you make yourself eat something, a banana, which if you're too picky to eat a banana, it's like, okay, then we have
a lot of people don't like bananas though. I can understand it. They are very pungent.
Okay, whatever, easy fruit. Don't distract from the point. Okay. But I'm like, if you don't like a fruit, it's like, here's the crazy part I think people realize about taste is it's in framing. So if you tell yourself you're going to hate it, you're probably going to hate it. But two, if you eat more fruits and vegetables, guess what? You're going to feel better after that. Guess what your body enjoys? Feeling good, having more energy. It likes that. It's going to feed back into that taste loop. It's going to tell yourself this food starts to taste, but kind of like coffee when you first drinking it. I remember my first sip as a child, like a 16-year-old, I almost wanted to throw up. Like, it buzzed my brain. It was whatever. But the more I got the benefits of like, oh, caffeine gives me that rush, that endorphin, that adrenaline rush.
But you shouldn't. We're not saying you should eat anything you hate.
No, not saying that.
I know,
but just saying
people might think that.
But like, if you're like at that hump where you're like, I'm just a picky eater, I can't get over it. It's like, it's harsh to be like, just grow up. But it's like kind of a point. It's like,
no,
make yourself do the hard thing a little bit. It's like, okay, first world problem. Like, oh, I can't eat my fruits and veggies because I don't like them. It's like, just make yourself do it for a little bit. Your brain will start to enjoy them. Like coffee, no one likes the taste of coffee when they first start drinking. I love it. Just the taste, the smell. I would drink it decaf as a beverage now without the benefit, just because I like the taste. No one starts out liking black coffee. Same thing with fruits and veggies. Yeah.
It's like, I'm gonna tell a little story. I was on a Hinge date once and we were out to dinner and he said, oh, I hate vegetables. I will never eat a vegetable. I was like, red flag. Because like, okay, cool. Like, you can't suck it up and eat a vegetable. Like, does your mom have to like feed them? Sorry, side note. Airplane coming in. Also, there is the kind of getting back to the actual evidence-based reasons why is, one, a lot of these are water-soluble vitamins. So how much you're actually absorbing is impossible to study because with these proprietary blends, again, you don't know the exact concentration of each nutrient in there. But also, then again, for some of them, there's no reason to study them if they're far exceeding the RDA. You're just excreting it in your urine. So any of that extra, like for the water-soluble vitamins, you're excreting them in your urine. And then there's the case with fat-soluble vitamins. Sorry, I'm in a silly, goofy mood. Fat-soluble vitamins are not excreted in the urine. And if you're having too much, and this is common, again, I said at the beginning, a lot of the times already healthy people are consuming greens powders. They already have a healthful diet. They eat it on top of the salads, the veggies, the produce they have in their other meals. So for those people, you run an increased risk of having too many fat-soluble vitamins. Where do they go?
What happens then? Yeah, what happens?
They go to the liver.
Fat-soluble?
They're stored in the liver. That can lead to vitamin toxicity, which is totally a thing. And it's very uncommon. This is not to scare anyone, but you do significantly increase that risk if you're having a mega dose of a greens powder every single day on top of the veggies
or if you're doubling
fruits.
Down, or if you're doing something like that.
Yeah. So there is known health risks for them. Very little research, though, shows any health benefits of greens powders, which is just so funny to me. Like, what?
And if you're like, what are you talking about? Because I think because I think greens powders, almost in like the evolutionary supplement chain, there was first multivitamins. I think greens powders came after that to pack in what multivitamins were. And we were just reading through some of the data on multivitamins. Right. I mean, these were massive trials done. What were do you have them on hand?
Yeah. So
the two that we were just talking about.
And a lot of this is the effects of multivitamins on certain diseases. So I'll list them off. An analysis of research involving 450,000 people. Again, this isn't an RCT, so not the standard, but this does help us study population disease risk. Found that multivitamins did not reduce the risk for heart disease or cancer. A study that tracked the mental functioning and multivitamin use of 5,947 men for 12 years found that multivitamins did not reduce risk for mental decline, such as memory loss or slowed down thinking. And then a study of 1,708 heart attack survivors who took a high-dose multivitamin or placebo for up to 55 months. Rates of later heart attacks, heart surgeries, and deaths were similar in the two groups.
Okay, so I think that's the big point I wanted to cover too. It's like because a lot of the greens powders is kind of the same concept of a multivitamin. Get all your vitamins and minerals. Get all your vitamins and minerals that you might be missing in your diet. But it's like, okay,
plus more.
Plus more. But okay, so because that's big because I think people see more is better. Like is it Airborne? The vitamin C supplement that people take when they're sick that does absolutely nothing, like has been proven over and over again. It's like, let's take a mega dose of. What is it? I think it is 10,000% of the daily recommended value, and people don't realize after 100, you pee it out. Like it's not
water soluble. You're just peeing it all out. Just have an orange.
Taking more doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything. It's not like it doesn't do, but it doesn't do anything. You just pee it out. So I think this is the problem with a lot of these greens powders is they'll mega load it with certain supplements, and again they like Athletic Greens, for example, has 4 proprietary blends, but they do list the dosages of a lot of the common vitamins and minerals like A, C, right? If they're at above 100, if they're in the hundreds, 500-700% of the daily recommended value, that's not that's just, again, a sales tactic. It's not. Yeah, it's proven over and over again.
It's used in marketing all the time. Like, exceed 100% of your daily value. It's like, okay, sick. What's that?
It sounds good, but it's shown over and over again to have zero, like We've talked about this on the creatine episode, right? It's like for a lot of these vitamins and minerals, especially water soluble, it's like a gas tank, right? Where with creatine, if you start supplementing with creatine, the gas tank increases in size. You can start to hold more gas. For a lot of these water soluble vitamins, you have a set size vitamin tank where once that tank is full, you can't fit anything else in there. It just goes away to waste. It's not used. Yeah. And I think that's something that people need to understand. So, okay, it doesn't improve risk across any of those health metrics. And it's for people listening like, oh, well, did they do a study on this or this? It's like bloat. It's like it's very hard to do controlled trials on these very, very specific causes, like meaningful trials, right? And like I think we had one that had like 10 people in it. Like the data on greens powders is
There's very few on greens powders specifically. Again, these companies, and it's different for each product. So because it's not required, and I think this is something that people really, if you take anything away from this, it's like, yeah, but these companies could go do the research, or if they say they're doing it, they're going to do it, or whatever. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry, the supplement industry, okay? They're not going to go spend money on privately funded research when this is so successful without it, and there's no requirements. Companies are not going to do that. So when we say there's very little research, there is very little research, but the research that a lot of these companies used is based off of studies on specific nutrients in isolation. So like antioxidants. There's a lot of studies on blueberries, antioxidants reducing inflammation, helping lower risk for heart disease, specifically just blueberries, eating just blueberries, not
and
this
eating
whole
blueberries.
complex. Eating blueberries.
Eating
yes.
blueberries. Yeah.
Yep.
But
So
what will companies do? So what will companies do with like a study that, again, total example, they'll pull this, and again, realize because they're not FDA regulated, that Health and Supplement Education Act lets them have zero regulation. So they'll take a study of eating blueberries, which is an antioxidant.
or just antioxidant research in general. They'll like just take it in general. Yeah.
Okay, so exactly. So they might not even have that compound from blueberries in their product, but they will have something you can label as an antioxidant. They'll pull that data to make claims like our product does X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. That's so broken.
It's so broken. And then, or they'll base it on really small studies like this one that Tony just mentioned. 2011 study, 10 healthy participants took 1 to 2 tablespoons of greens powder per day for a 4-week period. One, that's not enough time or enough people, but they tracked a bunch of different biomarkers, blood levels of total antioxidant capacity, polyphenols, another antioxidant, protein, lipids, LDL, a bunch of different things. And they did find that it, one second, I just need a second because I feel like I'm going to mess up my words. Pause. Okay. Continue. And they did find a reduction of oxidative damage, so which reduces inflammation in their blood, showing that the greens could be helpful. But they didn't include any information on their diet. So that reduction in oxidative damage could be coming from, and most likely is coming from if they're eating fruits and vegetables every day. That could also account for it. They didn't include any exercise data, nothing. And it's also only on 10 people.
10 people. And I'm like, okay, if you survey any 10 people, how different are their individual diets going to be from each other? Very.
Very different.
How
so there's
about
no
their
control
activities? How about that? There's no control. So like that's the style of research that's actually done, which you cannot draw a single conclusion from. It's not controlled. It's small. It's not, you can't draw anything from it.
Yeah.
Which is massively important.
Yeah. And I think this is cool, something for you guys to take away as well. In order to draw statistical analyses that can be extrapolated into the general population, there are a bunch of different factors that you need to meet. But one of those is having a sample size of n equals 30. 30. That's not a lot of people to be able to make these generalizations. This is 10. So you can't even make...
It's smaller than the smallest limit of what it should be. Yeah.
Yeah. So you need at least 30 to do the statistical analyses, have it be significant.
And even then, it's like people that read through it know that if it's a study done with 30 people, it's like you can make claims with it, but it's not very meaningful, especially on its own.
Yeah.
Especially on its own. So I think that's important for people to realize as they're going in. So, okay, so really who needs it is adolescents with a very low variety diet.
Not greens powders, though. I don't think they need greens powders, and I wouldn't market it because there's you don't know enough about them. So with kids, they digest these things differently. So maybe a kid's multivitamin, for sure, but a greens powder.
Okay, so not even them,
No.
but I mean, people that this could be helpful for would be, I think we were talking about this, people living below poverty.
Yeah.
Could potentially see benefit from this, potentially. But and I think people realize this too. Even if you eat a high variety diet, even if you don't eat the recommended servings of vegetables and fruits every single day, I don't think people realize how micronutrient dense a lot of just having variety of food in your diet is. I don't think people realize they're getting more than they think of very common vitamins and minerals that are used as preservatives, used as like vitamin C, right, is a preservative. They started putting it in food. What was it? So people stopped getting scurvy. That's why no one gets scurvy anymore. Is because
vitamin D, calcium. There's so many fortified foods, and that's awesome. That's a whole different topic we could talk about.
So even if people aren't getting their fruits and veggies, I don't think they're as bad as they think. Not saying that you should be like, oh, you're good, you don't need fruits and veggies ever.
No.
But I don't think people are as bad where if you're living under poverty and you are extremely limited in how much food you eat. The variety of food, the quality of food is all very, very, very low. That's when it is. But like you said, these greens powders are being marketed at $100 for 30 days. Most people that can afford that probably are well fed and likely have a very variety diet. So that's one point in here.
Yeah, and there's also, this is where they really differ from multivitamins. Okay, so you have a greens powder. They're not just using these to say, get all your vitamin, mineral needs in a little capsule. It's reduce bloating, improve your gut health, strengthen your immune system, have clearer skin. Like there's so many things that they can market them for because they have like a probiotic in them or they have digestive enzymes. And that's the biggest fad right now. I think it's, should I say it? Bloom supplements is like.
Yeah, not associated with Train Bloom. Not associated with
Oh, how unfortunate.
I know, very unfortunate. Bloom supplements, though. The Bloom greens powders.
Yeah.
Not associated with Train Bloom. Get that clear.
In theory, that's great to have everything and just it's so convenient, easy. Yeah. But when we're talking specifically about gut health, and this is where they've really started to rise in popularity because gut health, having a flat stomach, you got to have it. So they have digestive enzymes. Cool. If you don't have an underlying digestive disease or reason as to why your body is not producing digestive enzymes, you do not need to take more digestive enzymes. And again, there are some people who really do need to take digestive enzymes, but you should be making sure you're taking the right ones in the right quantity. So I would definitely recommend not getting it from a proprietary blend.
That's what you just helped me realize before this. I think we should hammer harder. And we can work on this on okay, well, what about people who swear on it for bloating, for things like this? But same thing. It's kind of like the same vitamin mineral deficiency. If you're deficient in vitamin D, you shouldn't just take a green powder. You should probably, and this is going to be based on your doctor's recommendation, I would guess, take a very much higher dosed specific vitamin D supplement. Because the tiny doses that are in these powders aren't going to fix a deficiency. They're not going to fix a deficiency. So same thing here with these digestive enzymes is like you said, you probably don't have an issue. You might think you do, but it's like you probably don't.
And if you do, you should definitely go see a doctor and get it addressed because...
Exactly. You should get it addressed because you don't just need a little bit of these enzymes here. It's like you'll probably need a much higher dose.
Your body's not producing them? Why? You need to figure that out.
You'll need a much higher dose of a very specific one or two or whatever. Not just a tiny little, that's not going to fix a big problem. I think that's important to realize in that digestive. So let's continue that into bloating.
Yeah.
I mean,
people on the topic of bloating, they also have probiotics in them. So first of all, there are so many different strains of probiotics. I'm a huge fan of probiotics. I think they can be great. You have to make sure you're taking the correct strain for the correct reason. So there's different ones for gut health. There's different ones for immunity. There's different ones for skin. Of course, this is one small piece to the puzzle. If you have gut issues, just one tiny, tiny component that may make a difference. But what is the blend of probiotics? How much are in these greens powders? Will it work for you? A lot of times it's trial and error for people. And also, you're covered. If you're bloated, it helps you a little bit with your bloating. It's not addressing the root cause of why you may be bloating.
Yeah, people. That's the biggest thing. Is it's people might say oh, but I swear it helps my bloating. It's it's a Band-Aid that might help it, but it's you're not solving what's causing the bloating. You're just solving the problem, which we should hopefully, freaking in America especially, realize by now. Waiting till it's a problem to solve it is not the best way to do things. You should take care of what's causing these problems in the first place so they don't happen. And they usually fix a lot more than that.
So there are many people, if you fall into the category of having IBS-C, and again, you should go through this with your doctor and go through all the things because IBS is really difficult and there's no one symptom that can say, oh, I have it. There's a lot of different things. Yeah. But if you do have IBS-C or struggle with constipation, that's what that means, constipation, too much fiber can actually be a very bad thing and make your symptoms worse. And why is that? So fiber is a prebiotic, which is amazing for gut health. Prebiotics feed the good gut bacteria, which is why they are marketed for gut health and why so many experts in the field recommend them. Yes, but if you are already eating a pretty high fiber diet or really just having enough fruits and vegetables in your day, if you do know you struggle with constipation, you have some IBS-C, you are feeding too much
What's causing
fiber.
that? Yeah.
And why too much? Why, Marianna, why too much fiber? Well, the byproduct of fermentation of these prebiotics is gas. So you're producing a lot of gas, and that is when you have an overgrowth.
Feeding bloating.
Yeah, when you have an overgrowth of bacteria in your small intestine, that's SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth, which there are so many other causes for it. This is just one potential reason, and it's one of the more common reasons. But if you continue to feed it and nourish that bacteria, it's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to produce more gas, which leads to bloating, discomfort, distension. So in that case, if that is your case, definitely go see a GI doctor, even better, a registered dietitian that specializes in gut health. I know that access with healthcare can be a very big issue, but they will help guide you on what is called a low FODMAP diet. And again, this is just one case. I'm just talking about one potential case and one potential reason why you could be bloated. These are common trends you see for yourself. A lot of people are like, oh my God, I can't eat an apple. I am so bloated after. You probably shouldn't be having greens powder on top of that because there's so much fiber.
Because I think, fiber's that double-edged sword work. Because, again, the first thing I recommend is if you're dealing with bloating, it's not some magic supplement that's going to fix it.
No.
And it's not what people want to hear, but I think people aren't receptive to it because they're not being sold something. They're used to being sold a fix to their problems. It's like, look at your stand and sit time during the day. Look at how many steps you're taking every day. Look at your fiber intake, but that doesn't automatically mean, oh, I need to eat as much fiber as humanly possible, because just like too little fiber is very poor for your gut health, digestion, make you feel bad. Too much fiber, especially increasing it too quickly. So even if you get to a good level, but you jump from like having like 5 to 10 grams a day up to like 50 grams a day, which 50, once you build up, might not be bad at all. It's a good place.
Yeah, it depends
like once
on the
you
person.
get there. Exactly. Yeah. But if you just make that jump, and especially, this is what I realized too, especially if you don't make that jump while increasing your NEAT, your non-exercise movement through the day, it's going to cause way more problems than not enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, and again, the majority of Americans, talking about America, do not get enough fiber. So I do not want to take away from that message at all.
Yes.
But we are uniquely talking about greens powders, which the majority of people who buy greens powders use it in their routine are already eating enough fiber throughout the day because they're marketed to affluent, successful people. You see all the influencers, they'll do my that girl aesthetic morning routine, have my greens powder, like go to the gym, have my salad,
my hot girl walk. Yeah,
it's just,
it's not helpful. And again, it's like, and even like you said at the beginning, it's like, yes, they might contain inulin or different fiber, but it's like, it's not the same as the fiber you get through food. Even if you consume inulin, like inulin through chicory root or another source, it's not the same as taking inulin powder. And then the dangerous thing too, I'd see powder supplements, they'll have like 20 grams of fiber in one serving. Like that's a bomb on your tract. Like it's not like I'll just take a few of these scoops per day. It's like, please don't.
Oh my gosh. Can I say a personal side note? I don't know why I asked, but I'm going to.
You may.
I personally have IBS-C. I had SIBO. I've seen all of the doctors for it, have been dismissed so many times. It's probably one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about it. But my first doctor, just primary care doctor that I went to, she did properly let me know, oh, you most likely have IBS, prescribed me a fiber supplement. I have IBS-C, didn't take into account that at all. And I was already, at the time, I was raw vegan, okay, other issue in and of itself, taking a fiber supplement. And I ate so much fiber already, which is what
What was your fiber? Do you have any idea what the total was after that prescribed?
Oh my God, I don't know. But I remember going.
100? 200? I feel like it'd be easily over 100.
Yeah, I remember going to my registered dietitian because I needed help. She specialized in gut health and also found out, one, that was my dietary issue. And again, this is personal experience. And then I also went to a specialist in the gut-brain connection. And I also have anxiety and depression. And once I got that under control, that changed my life, because I got my diet under control. Like,
oh, I don't doubt it.
And then I was like, why is this still? Yeah. So that's also, we could have a whole other podcast about the gut brain connection and stress, but yeah.
But as far as green powder, it's not going to do that. So again, I mean, just to kind of tie this up. So let me see if I'm gonna try and rephrase what you've covered today. Tell me if I'm missing a point. Is one, it's not going to, even if you are a picky eater and you refuse, you're putting your foot in the ground, you're going to die on the hill if you're not eating more fruits.
One, I'm not going to date you. I already have a boyfriend anyway,
Marianna,
but I'm not going to date you.
But two, it's a weird hill to die on if you're not going to do that. But two, it doesn't replace. Does it have vitamins? Yes, but it does not replace what you get through actual food. Does not do that. So even if you do, it's not like, oh, I'm okay, I take a greens. It's not okay. It's not the same thing. Two, when it comes to over-consuming, the more does not equal better. Yeah. The higher the doses, things like this, not better. Three would be talking about the proprietary blends.
The unknown.
Right? The unknown that you're consuming in these usually very expensive products. You don't know, just because it has it on the label, that does not mean it's clinically dosed. It has enough to do absolutely anything in it. So it's very something to be aware of. It's a big red flag. It does not mean it's has
Can
to
I
be
add
bad.
a note there too that
Yes.
I wanted to make sure we mentioned and I completely forgot.
Yeah.
But on that topic, a private study done by Consumer Labs did find they tested 13 different greens powder supplements, and 4 of the 13 products they tested came back exceeding the limit for lead. And one of those was high in cadmium and another high in arsenic. So this is not to scare anyone. This is very common for protein powders. I mean, there is so much heavy metal contamination in the soil, in the water. It's common. So, but it's still something to be wary of. Like I said, a big issue, and this was sent to the FDA. It was flagged. Do further research on, okay, what does this mean for our health though? And it does run a risk of you going beyond the tolerable upper limit for heavy metals, which could have some side effects, but it's really not common. So they did do more research on it. It's not to scare you, but if you are having these in mass amounts, it's something to think about. But yeah, I just found that interesting.
So a lot of unknown.
Yeah, there's a lot of unknown.
A lot of unknown. And then when it comes to gut health and bloating, because I think it is, and again, not to like throw specific companies on the bus, but I think First Forms is marketed and they've built an entire marketing strategy around this will cure bloating. And that's something that bloating is a weird topic that we got into a little bit, but it's like, one, I think a lot of bloating is caused. I mean, a lot of times I think people don't realize like your stomach doesn't look the same all day. Like if you eat food that's going to press out on your stomach, that's what a lot of people I think blame as bloating. But two, it's like realize if the green powder does help, because I did a video on this and so many comments like I swear by my greens powder in bloating. Realize you are putting a Band-Aid on the problem. You are not solving the cause. You're not solving the cause. You're not making the problem better. You're just temporarily relieving it. But as soon as you don't have that greens powder, you have the problem again. Focus on solving the cause, not putting a Band-Aid on the problem, right? That's the big piece of bloating. Look at your step count. Look at your sit versus stand. Optimize your fiber intake. Those 3 things will take you so much further than any $70, $100 greens powder will. Yeah. So much further if you do that consistently. And I think that's a pretty good wrap on greens powders. I mean, are they bad for you? No. But 99% of people listening to this do not need one. And especially like $100 a month, you are so much better off spending that money in other places.
On produce. Again, that's the thing. And I think that just wraps it all up so perfectly. It's like, we're largely talking to the people who could take it, like are thinking about it, really do have the means to take it, or already taking it. If you have access to that money, spend it on some produce. And again, it's not gonna, then having the greens powder, it's not gonna have any added benefit. But if you do, you like it, it's part of your routine, it's harmless, like it doesn't affect, well, keep taking it. Like, yeah,
not gonna hurt you. But yeah, just realize like if it is, because I also know a lot of people who would be the same boat that complain about groceries being too expensive, but then also be like spending $100 on athletic greens.
I have like, no sympathy for you then if you do that.
Oh, cool. Like, okay, have a little sympathy. But it's like,
you can spend literally $1.99 on some mixed frozen vegetables.
Well, before this, they didn't know Now
Sorry.
they know. So now
Tony
they can
keeps
say, you know
me-
what? Towards the end of the
Tony
day,
keeps me
it's
from
again,
getting
end of the day,
canceled.
we got to get that. Yeah, but so now that you know that, it's like, just experiment with this. If you don't believe us, try 2 months without taking your greens powder. Invest that $200 in a little bit more food that than before. Look at your step count, look at your fiber intake, look at the things we're talking about. Do those things, and I promise you in 2 months, if you still think you need that greens powder, do it. Go for it.
Yeah.
But we're saying this because we know how these work.
And we know how they don't. We know how they don't work. There's like so many claims that they just do not live up to, and will never, because the research will never be out on them, and we'll never exactly know completely what's in them. It's a supplement. Like, at the end of the day, it's a supplement. Like,
it's gonna pass in a few years. This is something we can tell you. If you listen to this, sorry for listening to this in 2027. Boring episode because you're like, oh yeah, they're still talking about greens powders. We already know this. Like, oh yeah, that was 5 years ago that they didn't.
It'll come back in some way, shape, or form.
It'll come back. So that was our episode on greens. We had a few technical difficulties, so it might be a little scratchy with the lights, but
yeah, kicked in really, really hard too. So I'm sorry.
It's the end of the day. They got empathy. You have empathy for them now. I do.
Yes.
They have empathy for you. So thank you guys so much for listening, especially as we start this off. We are so excited for the growth that we're seeing, the traction. You know where to find us. If you don't, it is Instagram and TikTok, fs.pod, P-O-D, on Instagram and TikTok. We have a Twitter account at Fitness Stuff.
And we've never tweeted before, but we got one.
We've never tweeted before, but we probably will maybe sometime sooner, to be determined. And our YouTube at Fitness Stuff as well, where you can see the video along with Spotify. These are published everywhere. So thank you for subscribing, listening to the new episodes, sharing the pieces you enjoy with people that you think could help. And we'll talk to you next time.